Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. It is another episode of League Unlocked. My name is Eric, flying a little Han Solo today for knockout round action in the Kespa Cup. A rare day off for all the teams to sit back and watch their favorite show on Disney Plus before they hit the Rift. And apparently, although I wasn't privy to it or saw it, you could access some of these games on Disney Plus North America. So imagine Disney actually listening that you can watch some of these games with the English broadcast, before the highlights come up hours later. So, wow, we getting progress over there. And it was a banger of a day. Again, this is far and away the best preseason. I'm going to lump this into the preseason category of tournaments, but one of the very best that we've had and has reinvigorated and reignited some life into the Kespa Cup, obviously because of teams playing their starters, having actual storylines, and a spicy off-season. But the day kicked off with a little Dplus versus Nongshim action, and this, game one was very back and forth. We're talking 50 minutes. This was a fun one. Siwoo tries to end the game. It's a Nexus push for Dplus, and then Nongshim eventually fires back to take game one, despite cutting this 11k gold lead into like 5k, and before finally Nongshim closing it out. But that wasn't the real story of this series, because after the first game, Dplus absolutely wakes up and we proceed to get back-to-back stomps in the way of Dplus Kia, starting in that second game where, Showmaker's level of play at the Kespa Cup has become a little bit of a meme because he's been so damn dominant, and that was more of the same in, again, games 2 and 3. And just to paint a picture of how big of a stomp these last two games were, not only does Smash almost get a pentakill, but doesn't even try and get it, by the way. He opts to prioritize the objective and go to Otacon. He doesn't chase down the Scion just to get that patented penta statistic. So shoutouts to him early in his career with Dplus for prioritizing that. But again, the last two games was a total of 54 kills for Dplus Kia and a pedestrian 8 kills, back-to-back 4-kill games for Nongshim. So absolute stomps. Look at the damage on Scout's Galio. 8,000 damage. 8k. 800 more than the Renata Glask out of Lehens, and Showmaker nearly tripling him up on the Ari performance, as basically the same amount of time between these two games as the game one action was between Nongshim and Dplus. But DK does lose a game, so they're not perfect on the tournament anymore, but they do advance to that winner's bracket, and they look good. I mean, again, we're not actually going to be taking too much from this whole tournament when things are all said and done, but I will say preseason early signs, Smash and Career look leaps and bounds better in lane than we got basically at any point with aiming and barrel throughout all of last year. So cautiously optimistic, and again, this Smash fella has been, you could talk about the trio of 80 carries from T1 have all been pretty dominant so far at this event, but Smash especially near first in pretty much every major category for them. And I think the biggest thing for these three former and or current T1 bot laners to talk about is just they all have something to prove for one way or another. Smash proving whether or not he has what it takes to be a de facto starter on a contending team in the LCK. Very early signs would say yes, check on that side. Obviously, Gumayusi has things to prove that he can thrive outside of T1, and Peyz has to prove that he can step into the shoes and fill the void of Guma and warrants a spot on the coveted T1 organization. So lots of guys there looking to prove themselves. And also wanted to highlight one more thing about Dplus, because they'll go as far as the old wily veteran, the sensei that is Showmaker in the mid lane, will take them, and he has been absolutely locked in at the Kespa Cup, and the only thing he's not first in on this board is the kill participation, which he's still top 3 among mid laners. And, no Chovy at this event, so you go, okay, well, I guess it's not that, or not as impressive then at that point, but it's still very impressive. He has been very good, and no reason to think that it's going to slow down as, again, they move on to that winner's round of things. And Smash was getting spoon-fed kills. It looked comfortable for them throughout, but then we got to the main event of at least this opening day, and that is T1 versus Hanwha Life. Guma versus his former squad, and it was very obvious very early where the emphasis was going to be, as there were a whole lot of dives in the bot lane pre 6 minutes. At 6 minutes, Guma and Delight were getting 2v2'd by Peyz and Curia. Obviously, they had the much better laning matchup in the Lucian Braum, but it didn't really matter because skirmishes and team fights in the mid game. Guma gets back into the game, gets an unofficial quadra kill, then a triple kill on the Corki, gets incredibly fed. Eventually, Curia would steal a Baron, but it didn't matter at that point. Hanwha Life was so far ahead. Both Peyz and Guma did some nutty damage in that first game. But really, the theme of this series between T1 and Hanwha was just absolute scrapyard type of gameplay. These guys were just hands checking, hands dipping throughout, and was an absolute treat to see. Lived up to the hype, no question. And what's really interesting about how this Hanwha Life squad is going to play out, and we've talked about, okay, Peanut versus Kanavi. These are two junglers with very different play styles. They bring very different skill sets to their respective squads. And we thought Peanut, ever since his kind of second era with Gen G, he stepped in to the veteran, the leadership, I'm not going to pop off in 1v9. I'm going to facilitate and make sure that my teammates are the ones thriving around me. And that worked perfectly on Gen G as they won a bunch of titles, and it fit in seamlessly in the new look, new era of Hanwha Life with Zeus and Viper. And even though Zeka didn't have a great year, Peanut fit in perfectly. So how was Kanavi going to fit? Well, the very early signs are the 5v5 prowess of Hanwha Life is very much still there, and might even be more of a focal point. Maybe there's not the macro genius that we got out of Mr. Peanut, but you got a jungler who can actually just hand stiff a guy like Owner. And it's amazing that Kanavi has been at this level for the better part of half a decade now, and continues to do so on crazy picks like the Aatrox in this set, and other whatever OP things are going to be showing up. But the first game, at the very least, was Kanavi playing at a high level. The second game, Guma gets to pick a patented Ashe Seraphine combo, which was patented for Kyria and Guma, but now he's doing it against them, styling on them, and that's no way to do it. It looked like Hanwha Life was on their way to a quick 2-0 before Kanavi, who I was just glazing, face checks, dies. Kyria has a nice engage, and we get a pentakill. What is that? 4 pentakills already at this event, which is kind of insane. But Peyz gets his first penta on T1. I believe Kespa counts as an official one. So the absolute lunatic level of pentakills that we've already seen out of Peyz, he gets another one as they steal this second game to go into game 3, T1 versus Hanwha, and one man was stealing the show in this one on his patented pick. We're talking about Zeka, who, let me tell you, was an absolute mad lad on the day. He solo killed Faker not once, but twice in this Akali Mel matchup, and this tournament, at least on the day, fully felt like, okay, Faker, the world's buff, worlds is over. He's fading back into the let me coast a little bit in the regular season type of mood, because as we'll get to later, there were some other not so solid performances. Zeka definitely outperformed him on the day. But listen, Faker and T1 have already played. They played these 3 games in the Red Bull League of Their Own event, which, by the way, 3 games isn't much, but they had to fly all the way to Berlin for that one. And now we're talking about 11 games that they've played at the Kespa Cup. Na'Vi played 8 games total in the summer split in the LEC. And T1 has played more games than that in the preseason, and they're going to be playing more games as things go forward. But shout out to Zeka for having such an incredible game 3 on that Akali performance, and shout out to Hanwha Life kind of dominating that third one, as you saw Guma absolutely, I mean, he was thirsty to kill Kyria and the rest of the squad as often as possible, but especially this third game, it really just felt like a show match in, not that it was sloppy play, but that there's so many gifted mechanical players in this matchup that it's just exchanging turns, trying to get a highlight reel play and pop off and take over. And you saw pretty much everybody on Hanwha do that. You saw Kanavi earlier in the series, but Zeus and Zeka and Guma at times, especially in this third game, were just showcasing what they're able to do on the Rift and absolutely dominating while they do it. So actually lived up to the hype for this one, and surprisingly afterwards, Guma just fist bumps for the former teammates. He had a big smile, but no hugs for Kyria. Maybe an extra little smile for Owner, but business as usual, fist bumps all along the way, as now Hanwha will match up against Dplus on that winner's side of the bracket. There was no rest on the day because T1 had to get right back on the Rift and what I guess would be the loser's bracket against Nongshim, who lost to Dplus earlier in the day. We get Scout versus Faker, another iconic matchup between those two. And the first game was very close until a staple moment in the history of any team versus T1 chase down Faker on the Azir to try and kill him. And Faker had a pretty, again, rough early game on the Azir. He was mistiming flashes, getting caught out, getting killed by Scout. But when it comes down to it, Nongshim tries to dive him. It does not work out for them. They don't even kill him. And then it ends, I think they do kill him at the end, but it ends up being Otacon going over, blah, blah, blah. T1 is able to close it out from there. And the second game in this series was not close. Not really close at all, but it again was not, Faker had a better Rise game, but he is very much in low econ, low energy mode, as I saw somebody call it, as he will not be, it's part of the cycle of life. Faker wins Worlds, and then he's completely locked in. He has to do all these preseason, not so meaningful events, kind of coast through, maybe even Split 1, partway into Split 2. At times in Split 3, he's got to conserve those resources and the energy for another World Championship run. So we're at the very early days of him kind of tuning things out, but that doesn't mean that T1 still didn't clean 2-0 their way through, and despite losing to Hanwha Life, I think what you're left is still feeling pretty good about the level of Peyz and how he's going to fit into this lineup, because him and Kyria got solo kills in both series and were pretty dang dominant in lane, outside of lane. Just look at the damage Peyz did compared to Taeyun, who did not have a good series on the day. Lahen's almost did more damage than him, but Peyz nearly doubling this dude up in terms of damage. And really, I think the main takeaway, regardless of how things end up going for T1, because obviously they stay alive, they beat Nongshim, you're just grading, okay, how is Peyz fitting into this lineup? This is better than Scrim opportunity because they're actually playing on stage now, but Peyz picks up that MVP in the second game on the Ashe, where he was very confident and is even a little more, I don't want to say more aggressive than Guma, because that dude is unhinged at times, but we've seen Peyz is of the same ilk, cut from the same cloth of Guma, and that is he is not afraid to shy away from the big stage, not afraid to be the guy to flash forward, to dive in. He got a pet to kill already, but even on something like the Ashe, he was playing hyper aggressive, and the absolute chaos circus that we love to associate with T1, this guy's in there, and you don't need to worry about him fitting in. He's already played 11 games with T1, and the LCK split has not even kicked off yet. So if you're T1, you're feeling pretty good about Peyz so far, and again, you're feeling pretty good. How about the low-key MVP of this whole tournament so far has just straight up been the winter map. The fact that it's back, I love that that was implemented into actual meaningful games. It's one thing to rip some ARAM or solo queue and have that map around, but even the nice little touches of having the Santa hat on the Rift Herald as it's charging around, it just, it just feels a little special for this event, and it's a little special to have, again, meaningful, not the right word, but hype matchups this early in the year, or this late in the year. We're not even into 2026 yet. It's bizarre to still have the Kespa Cup and Demacia Cup. It's always a little weird because they're 2025, but really they're kind of 2026, especially Demacia, which does slide in to the next year. But just super thankful to have games that are meaningful and exciting, and that you can actually watch them now on Disney Plus is something fun to talk about in North America. And even if you're not getting fully the English games, it's good. It's progress. And again, we've touched about it a bit with Mark, but how do you replicate this? How do you replicate this event in other regions? I know you're not going to have the brand backing force that is Disney Plus, but if you're the LCS or the LEC, they've tried these different preseason type tournaments, even the lock-in tournament that the LCS had a couple of years ago. You got to be taking notes from both this and the Red Bull event and saying, okay, how did this work, or what worked about this? How can we implement it within our respective regions? Because all it does is build hype for the next year, even though you're still playing on an outdated patch that everyone else is going to be playing on in 2026 when week 1 does roll around. It still builds up hype and, builds. So many teams have new players, new rosters around them, so it's an opportunity to kind of get a fresh run before the matches are too meaningful. I will say now I'm still very excited for this T1 current former AD carry carousel to continue. As the winner side of this match, we're going to have Dplus versus Hanwha Life, and Dplus and Kespa hits a little bit different, and we're going to get the head-to-head showdown Smash versus Gumayusi to decide who is the ultimate T1 AD carry, and neither of them are actually on T1. But this bracket and the scripting right now, I don't think Riot could have asked for or written a better script to have T1 go down to losers and then have, play the loser of that Dplus versus Hanwha Life and maybe complete a little run down there. But it's obviously Smash versus Guma is going to be the most fun one to look at. Showmaker versus Zeka, both of them in peak form right now early on in the year, and seeing the continued growth out of Kanavi. We know Aatrox is going to definitely get nerfed before the next year, surely, right? Before the next... it's broken right now. It's going to be nerfed because it's one of the best solo queue champions right now as well. So maybe Kanavi and Lucid aren't going to be popping off on that, but either way, it feels like I'm just right in the heart of the LCK, and it is still preseason. We don't even have Split 1. I think there's still going to be the LCK Cup for this year, but it feels like we shouldn't be so hyped up about these games, and I'm hyped up about them, and I can't even get highlights. I can't even put them up, and I'm still just going through them and just excited to have these games because it feels like a blessing. Usually we don't have them, but I feel like this is Hanwha Life's... I'm going to say it was Hanwha's Life tournament to win because Guma, everyone's so motivated. But that is the biggest thing, I think, heading into this LCK season. We're so hyped with these three squads, and Gen G isn't even involved here. And Gen G is going to be pushed within the LCK like they have not been pushed since maybe 2022 because these other teams are hungry. The unbelievable talent of T1 has been spread into the wind like a dandelion seed in the spring when you have Guma and Zeus now on Hanwha Life to jazz them up, and a revitalized Showmaker with the youngins around him on Dplus Kia, and T1 looking to yet again prove themselves. And I mean, they might be more after an LCK title nowadays than Worlds after winning 3 in a row. You haven't won an LCK title in much longer than Worlds. I think it's still 2022 spring. The perfect run for T1 is the last time they won domestically. So all this entire Kespa Cup tournament doing is hyping up the regular season even more for the LCK and who's going to be the main contender. One other little note that's outside of the Kespa Cup, and it's a day or two old now, but we saw that Bwipo, who was going to be on a ERL team with in the LFL, and apparently that is not going to be the case. He was going to be the jungler, but now we're seeing, okay, Adam and Targamas were on this squad, and apparently there's a rule set with Riot, like you can only have 2 imported players, you can only have 2 veteran players in the ERL, and veteran, as their definition, is playing 3 of the last 5 splits within a tier 1 region, and Adam, Targamas, and Bwipo all fall under that. So Bwipo can't join the team, which is a bit of a oopsie no whoopsie from Riot, because apparently they initially said yes, this is all good, and then it was no, actually there's 3 of you, so Bwipo can't play, so they need an emergency sub jungler, and that of course means Bwipo will be teamless for at least split 1. Maybe he picks somewhere up in split 2, but I hope he actually goes the jungle route if he is going to be starting again. Obviously there's quite a bit of a redemption arc ahead for Mr. Bwipo after not just how FlyQuest bowed out and he didn't play that well, but obviously the toxic environment and him being suspended or banned for a game, losing some money because of some not good comments. So Bwipo, maybe he slips into an assistant coaching role with somebody either in EU or NA before he finds himself back on a squad for the split 2 or 3, but I mean, you don't want to wish that on him, that he has to basically get completely screwed out of a starting spot. So we'll see what ends up happening with him, but he's going to be a guy to monitor as all these other teams are finalized. And I think I'm willing to give Bwipo a chance at redemption. You know, I think we forget how young a lot of these guys are. Even a guy like Bwipo, who's, you know, veteran status, been around a while, these are still guys in their 20s figuring things out. Maybe the brain's not even fully developed yet, not thinking about some of the things they say, but he shouldn't be fully judged for the one comment that he's had. And I know Bwipo's had a lot of other comments, more so just kind of trash talking other players. So this isn't just a one-off event, but I'm still willing to open my heart for a redemption arc out of Bwipo, and maybe him being denied a starting spot so late in the season will be something that really hyper accelerates that. But we'll see what continues to go on with him throughout the offseason, and we will recap all the Kespa Cup action as we head into finals weekend over there. But that is it today for League Unlocked. My name is Eric. Thank you to all you stunners for hanging out as always, and you best believe we will catch you on that flippity flip.